Welcome to Reread. I'm going through 3 short stories today. The first one is, or the first 2 are from the Star Wars Adventure Journal. The first one's from volume number 7. It's called Passages. Charlene Newcomb wrote this, and I forgot there's a guy in the expanded universe called Matt. Hey, I like it already. You see, he loses at Sabacc to a girl named Metallo, and it's a $150,000 pot. And he says, well, I own a land speeder repair shop. He doesn't own it. His brother owns it. So now he has to work it off for, I don't know, years, working for Metallo as a mechanic, and everything. So he's been traveling around with her for a little while. Now, we find out a little bit about Matt's past. He's a deserter from the Empire. His wife and daughter died on 2 separate things. He wasn't happy with what he was seeing the Empire was becoming, or what they were, and so he kind of left and deserted. And this all comes out later on as they get busted by Imperials. Imperials are doing a search for rebels. Some of Metallo's card-playing friends turn out to be rebels, and she didn't even know it, but she decides to help them out. But Matt gets arrested because and she says this, out of all the officers in the Imperial Navy, one of them recognized my man. And because Matt had told her like hours before he got captured, oh yeah, I may be wanted by the Empire, by the way. And when they get put on the ship, the Imperial officer recognizes and says, wait, you are a deserter. And so they arrest him. Well, Metallo and a few of her newfound rebel friends go to bust Matt out, bust out the other rebels. It turns out, and they knew one of them was a traitor. The one that was a traitor was the one who got captured. And it was really neat because you're thinking, oh, it's probably Hunter. He was a guy that was hurt and injured and was in the care of Metallo. I bet it's him. No, it was one of the guys who was in the cell who got captured. He was the double agent. And of course, Matt jumps in front of a laser blaster bolt and saves Metallo, but they decide to still be friends. He's still going to work for and work off his debt, I guess. And they're going to join the rebel cause, just like a lot of Star Wars Adventure Journal's books were doing back then. And I don't mind that either because they were building up for role-playing adventures. At the end, they give the statistics of everyone and, some ideas of what you could do with these characters. But the story was what was good out of it. And, hey, the guy's name was Matt. So, love it. The next one is from the Adventure Journal Volume 2. It's called Out of the Cradle. It is Patricia A. Jackson. Let's see if you can make sense of this. Guy named Drake, he's 15 years old. He grew up on the planet Socorro. I like the planet Socorro. It's a volcanic planet with a bunch of ash, so it's got black sand all over it. They have another RPG called The Black Sands of Socorro. Really interesting read. But he's from Socorro, and he has an encounter with the Empire, gets out of it, and some alien says something in a certain language. And what did he say? He said, you're out of the cradle now. You're no longer a boy. Because you survived this encounter, you're a man. That is basically it. The only interesting thing in this was that the ship has a Jawa as an engineer. I think that's kind of neat. Jawas can tinker around, probably, slap things together, make junk operational or work, and maybe have some crazy cross-wiring things on a ship. I think that is, and of course, that's what role-playing games are supposed to do, right? Give you this zany crew and say, okay, here's what you can do with the adventure, which is, of course, what they do at the end of this one. The story goes, again, Patricia A. Jackson, way too long and way too pointless. And you're really not invested. I only wanted to hear about that Jawa mechanic, and that was really it. But he's only in it for like a few minutes, because the Imperials they see something up in the air ducts, they don't know what it is, they start to shoot at him. He's like, hey, whatever his name is, come down from here. And it's a little Jawa, and they're like, what is this? And he smells bad, and what are you doing with this thing? Because they don't like aliens. But I was like, oh, Jawa mechanic, I get it. That's kind of cool. But the story, not so cool. You know what is cool? From Galactic Battlegrounds, they have a short story, very long short story at the beginning called Pax Empirica, the Wookie Annihilation. Now, when you read the title, that's awesome. But it's about a bunch of Imperials who are about to invade Kashyyyk, and they're giving, the dossier about why they can't use AT-ATs because the jungle's too dense. And it's going to be an easy route because the Wookiees are primitives. They live in tree houses. We can easily beat them. They're underestimating the Wookiees. And then the Wookiees are just shredding these people apart. I think 3 stormtroopers out of a whole platoon make it out alive. And, it was a horrible night. Well, it's from this one stormtrooper's perspective, and he thinks the Empire's good. And they're here to establish order in the galaxy. And yes, The Wookiees, we'll let them have their little win over our platoon, but the Empire's resources are relentless, and we will, they will kneel. We will crush our enemies below the Empire will do good work or whatever. He truly believes the Empire's, a force of good. I love it. I love it. It's really well. It reads smoothly. Like I said, just a regular short story, not too short and not too long either, but very interesting, especially as the Wookiees come out of nowhere and jump stormtroopers and easily, and they don't even have weapons. They're just tearing them apart with their claws and everything. And that's just awesome. Awesome. Who knew that a great short story is relying on a game aid or a player aid? One of those video game aids. They used to make them all the time. And I think you can get this one for pretty cheap. I remember I got it for very cheap online way back in the day. But gaming aids no one cares about anymore, and one for Galactic Battlegrounds, who would care about it? But Pax Empirica, The Wookie Annihilation, is a fun short story. And it doesn't say who wrote it either, unless I'm missing it. I couldn't find an author there. But anyway, those are the 3 short stories I want to talk about today. I will see you next time.